We are on the record on 23 CF 170 People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person and with counsel, Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And we are scheduled today to continue with the prosecution's evidence. And then Mr. Jones, as far as what has been scheduled for today, you want to elaborate on that?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we have Dr. Denton here for the results of the autopsy, and then 2 lab people. There's an agreement between the parties that one of those lab individuals can testify about the report of another person, which saves us some time. And then finally today, Eric Cowick, one of the detectives, is going to testify. The other lab people, obviously they received multiple subpoenas and weren't able to be here today, so we scheduled them, 3 other lab people, 4 other lab people for Tuesday. And then there's a witness that was coming from California that will be here Tuesday. And our final witness on Tuesday would be Nick Eddy, the other detective. So I think today, unfortunately, we couldn't get any of those witnesses for Tuesday today. So today we will probably be done noon-ish, 11:30, 12:30, somewhere in that area.
All right, so we will just go ahead and continue with your evidence this morning until we are completed with it, and then we will break and I'll be able to release the jury for the weekend. Is that correct?
I have no problem with that.
Okay, Ms. Schnock?
That's fine, Judge.
All right. And then is there anything we need to bring up before the jury is seated, Mr. Jones?
Judge, I will just make a record of this, and I've spoken to Ms. Schnock about this as well. Obviously, Dr. Denton, there's photographs that we're going to use. 2 of those photographs we are not going to put on the screen based on the nature of those photographs. I've shown those already to Ms. Schnock. If the court wants to see those, we can do that as well, but we're not going to put them on the screen. We are just going to show them to the jury. If the court wants me to hand them to the jurors so they can pass them around, I can do that. My preference would be that we just hold it up and let them look at it, though.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
You may be heard.
These pictures are highly inflammatory, and I can't say that they both have any prejudicial value. I have a huge problem with the jury seeing these 2 pictures. I would ask that the court review these pictures in camera before deciding whether or not they should be submitted to the jury.
Mr. Jones, you wish to, well, first of all, what's the purpose of the photos?
The first photograph is a photograph of the victim's body from the torso down, and that photograph shows the condition of the body after the clothing is removed. It shows the bullet wounds to her body. It shows the nature of those wounds. Dr. Denton, in connection with that photograph, would then describe each of the 14 wounds. That's the nature of that photograph. I understand what Ms. Schnock's position is with that, but that's part of our case, is the number of wounds and the position of those wounds. The second photograph.
What exhibit number would that be if you've got that?
I do believe it's 133. Judge, it also shows a recent surgery that the victim had, as well as the perineum of the victim. And again, that is also necessary based on some statements from the defense regarding possible motive for this offense beyond the motive that the people have presented.
Okay. The court's going to review that photo, exhibit 133. Okay. Mr. Jones, if you could take that. Okay, Ms. Schnock, anything further you want to argue about 133?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the court is going to allow or admit that into evidence, is going to allow it to be shown to the jury for reasons that it does have evidentiary value. It also has the demonstrative value because Dr. Denton will be testifying as to matters that are shown in the photo. So over objection, that will be allowed to be, as long as there's a foundation laid, then it will be admitted into the record and will be allowed to be shown to the jury. The court will not publish it any further, but to the jury, because of the nature of that photo. And then the next photo, Mr. Jones.
Judge, that's People's Exhibits 134. That is a photograph of the torso of the victim lying on the examination table from a side view. I won't disagree with Ms. Schnock that it is a graphic photo. It is a graphic photo. However, that photo also shows the path marks of each of the entrance and exit wounds. In other words, the medical examiner will testify, Dr. Denton will testify, that he placed rods in each of the wounds to show the path of the bullet through the body, but also from that he can extrapolate the path of the wound before it, the path of the projectile, the bullet, before it entered the body, which is also relevant to this case because, again, he will testify that the victim was on the ground when she was shot the majority of the times, or falling to the ground when she was shot the majority of the times. That is, again, important and relevant to our case. It is a graphic photo, but we've also, so the court's aware, we did black out the victim's face and head area in an attempt to limit the prejudicial value, because it is probative, but I will not dispute there is a prejudicial effect. But again, every piece of evidence we use is prejudicial. If it wasn't prejudicial, we wouldn't be using it. The issue here is prejudicial value versus probative value, and the probative value here is extensive as well.
Ms. Schnock, you wish to be heard further on that objection?
Your Honor, this photo is conscious, shocking, and in our opinion would only garner sympathy with the jury, in addition to being exceptionally prejudicial and inflammatory. And I understand that all evidence has a prejudicial effect, but this is highly inflammatory. Dr. Denton can testify to everything Mr. Jones says, but the jury doesn't need to see this.
Mr. Jones, you wish to be heard further?
Dr. Denton can definitely testify to that, but there is value in beyond his words and the ability to see the path of the bullet. People can learn and see things in different ways. He certainly can't say the path of the wound, but there is absolute probative value to seeing it with your own eyes.
And the people have offered other photos that aren't as graphic that can demonstrate the same thing.
I would absolutely disagree. We have not offered other photos that can demonstrate the same thing.
The court has reviewed Exhibit 134. It is very graphic. However, whether or not it's graphic and prejudicial is not the total determination of whether or not this photo can be admitted. The test is whether or not there is probative value. There is certainly probative value. It helps, it shows the testimony that the people are going to provide by way of Dr. Denton's explanation as to the path of each bullet wound. So it is probative, and the people are allowed to present their case as they believe is proper. The court does not find that, although the picture is graphic, the court does not find that it its prejudicial value outweighs the probative value in this, so the court will allow that photo over objection if the people lay a proper foundation for that photo. And then, Mr. Jones or Ms. Schnock, anything else we need to bring up?
No?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and I would ask that when that is published, when those photos are published to the jury, then you do it in a way that it's not seen by
The gallery.
the gallery.
And Judge, again, out of respect for that, I'm not going to, I've asked permission for court to not hand it to each of the individual jurors. The more people who touch it, the more different ways it can get shown. So if I hold it, then we know where it is. And
Ms. Schnock, any objection to that procedure?
No, Your Honor.
The other thing I would note is that since it will be admitted, if the people lay a foundation, then it will go back to the jury. So at that point, they will be allowed to review that if they want a closer view of that, Mr. Jones.
well, again, in deference to the court, we haven't discussed what exhibits would go back to the court. And, you know, at this point, I think it's premature to suggest that we're going to send all the exhibits back or none of the exhibits back. So if it goes back, the court's absolutely right.
That's true, but that's one of the things that we need to consider in the way that you are going to present that, is if the jury needs a closer view, then there's a procedure where that can be done, that it could go back to the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, and then anything else?
Nothing for the people.
All right, then we will be in recess until 9 o'clock. We are on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person and with counsel Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And we are scheduled to continue with the people's evidence today. And before we get started, ladies and gentlemen who are in the audience, you are allowed to have cell phones in the courthouse. Those cell phones must be turned completely off while you are in the courtroom and kept out of sight. If your phone would go off while you're in the courtroom, or if security would see you with your cell phone or other device out, then they will ask you to leave and you will not be allowed back in until the next day. That does not include media. Media is allowed to have their cell phones and other electronic devices out so that they can communicate with the public, but they must wear their ID badges so that security knows that they are media and knows not to hassle them. So, if you have your cell phone on you and you need to turn it off, please do that right now, and nothing will be said. And then, Mr. Jones, anything we need to take up before we bring in the jury?
Nothing from the people, Your Honor.
Anything from the defendant, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, let's bring in the jury.
The State Circuit Court is now reconvened with the Honorable Robert K. Green, Judge presiding. Please be seated.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. We are still proceeding on the prosecution's case in chief. And Mr. Jones, you have evidence today.
I do, Your Honor.
Call your first witness.
People would call Dr. Scott Denton.
Doctor, if you step up to the front of the courtroom, raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Then if you'd come around here and have a seat right here in this chair.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable, and that microphone bends, so if you'd bend it up and speak towards the microphone, please. You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name?
Sure, I'm Dr. Scott Denton, D-E-N-T-O-N.
Can everybody hear Dr. Denton okay? Dr. Denton, can you tell me what you do for a living?
Sure, I'm a forensic pathologist and I perform autopsies for coroners in Illinois.
What is a forensic pathologist?
A forensic pathologist is a medical doctor who has specialized training in examining people who die, usually under sudden, unexpected means or under suspicious circumstances or from trauma.
You said a forensic pathologist has specialized training. Can you tell me what that specialized training is?
Sure, so I can start with, I guess, college. I went to undergrad college at Arizona State University. I graduated in 1987 with a Bachelor of Science degree, cum laude, in zoology. After that, I went to medical school at the University of Arizona College of Medicine in Tucson. I graduated in 1991 with my MD, or medical doctor degree. After that, I specialized in the field of anatomic and clinical pathology, which was a 5-year residency. That last year of the 5-year residency, I was chief resident. And then I did an additional year of training called a fellowship year at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office in Chicago, specifically in forensic pathology.
Since that time, how long have you been a forensic pathologist?
I've been a forensic pathologist since 1996.
How many autopsies have you performed in your career?
I don't keep an exact count over those past 27 years. My best estimate, the autopsies I perform myself, is about 12,000.
Dr. Denton, as a forensic pathologist, are there requirements for you to undergo a continuing training or things like that?
Yes, so I have training and experience in forensic pathology, and also I maintain my medical licensure in Illinois, which requires continuing medical education. I go to meetings with my peers, other forensic pathologists, and I maintain current, my board certification is current.
Are you a member of any groups that relate to forensic pathology?
I am. I belong to the National Association of Medical Examiners, which is the largest organization of forensic pathologists in the country. I'm currently secretary-treasurer. I've been elected that position every year since 2011, continually serving. I'm also, but by means of that position, on the executive committee of NAME. I also belong to the American Medical Association, College of American Pathologists, and I also belong on the Illinois Coroners Training Board as the Coroners Forensic Pathologist Representative appointed by the governor. And I also belong to Alpha Omega Alpha, which is an honor medical society.
Your Honor, at this point, we would ask that Dr. Denton be accepted by the court and tender him to the defense as an expert witness in the area of forensic pathology.
Ms. Schnock, any objection?
No.
Court will certify Dr. Denton as an expert in forensic pathology.
Dr. Denton, in a general sense, you've told us that you performed autopsies in over 12,000 in your career. What is an autopsy?
Sure. So an autopsy is basically a very detailed physical examination of a person after death. It starts first with the circumstances of the deceased. For example, why is the person here requiring an autopsy? the person can't tell me. So it's like when you go to the doctor, they ask you, why are you here? What is wrong? So I get that from other information. That's usually from the coroner. So the coroner or other investigators will tell me, or family, what the circumstances are. Why are they here? After that, I proceed to examine the body, basically from all the way outside, anything on the surface of the body to the surface of the body, including the skin from head to toe. And then I make surgical incisions on basically the shoulders to the mid-chest, abdomen, back of the head, examining the organs first in place, looking for anything normal or abnormal, including trauma or injury, and then examining the organs outside the body, again, looking for normal and abnormal things. I collect fluids for toxicology or drug testing. We perform x-rays, and then everything is placed back with the body, and it goes to the funeral home.
You said you cut into the body, you look at the organs, you try to determine the cause of death, those types of things. When you're doing that, is it important that you take photographs, that you document those things?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why it's important that you take photographs when you document those things?
Sure. So I document the autopsy photographically with my assistant, basically so that I can relate that to other people. So other people can look at and see what I'm seeing, and I can use those photographs to explain to family or the coroner or to yourselves what I'm seeing. And if there's other forensic pathologists that want to review my work, they can also look at my report and also my photographs.
In this case, did you perform an autopsy on the body of Becky Bliefnick?
I did.
And did you take photographs that documented that procedure?
Yes.
If I could approach you with.
You may.
Dr. Denton, I'm going to hand you what has been previously marked as People's Exhibits 124 through 134. Can you take a look at those and tell me when you've had a chance to go through those?
Okay, I went through them.
Do you recognize those photos?
I do, yes.
Are those photographs that were taken during the performance of the autopsy on the body of Rebecca or Becky Bliefnick?
Right, they are a subset of the numerous photographs taken during her examination.
You took, fair to say, hundreds of photos, or not you? Your office took hundreds of photos?
Right, myself or my autopsy technician took the photographs, yes. Yeah, that's a fair number, I believe, yes.
And this is a subset of those photos. We're not showing every photo.
Correct.
Do those photos accurately show what you observed in performing that autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd ask that people's 124 through 134 be offered into evidence. We'd ask leave to publish, again, with the exception of 133 and 134, which we'll publish in a different way.
Ms. Stock, any objection as to foundation?
No.
Okay. 124 through 134 will be admitted. 133 and 134 is admitted over objection that we heard previously.
We can go to the first slide, Ms. Daly. Dr. Denton, on the screen right now is People's Exhibits, People's Exhibit 124. Can you tell me what we're looking at, please?
Yes, you're looking at the external view of Ms. Bliefnick's upper to mid-body as her body is within the body bag, and it's basically a clamshell secured bag, and it's opened. And this is one of the photographs that just show how she's received from the coroner as we start to examine her.
I noticed that there are paper bags around both her hands.
Yes,
Is that right?
that is correct.
Can you tell me what those paper bags are there for?
Sure, those are called trace evidence bags. So those are placed by investigators or the coroner and over the hands and are sealed with tape so that if any trace evidence is on the fingers, it collects that fingers, if that trace evidence, if it falls off, and if there's anything, and it prevents other things from going on to the hands within the body bag.
Also, I want to talk about the black pants that are on the body. Did you have a chance to observe those pants?
I did. I observed all her clothing, including the black surgical compression type pants, yes.
You just called them black surgical compression pants. Can you explain for me what those surgical compression pants are there for?
Sure. So those are medical pants. They have zippers on both sides. They are elastic and very, I would say, thicker than normal stretch type pants. They're very firm and hold the body together.
I also noticed that the middle of those pants is cut out. Is that how those pants are designed?
Yes, there's a circular defect or hole that was normal for those pants. As you can see, there's a towel in that area in the underwear, but that is so the pants can stay on and the person is able to urinate.
You can go forward one slide. Is this a photograph of those pants?
Yes.
And again, you see as you called it, a defect in the pants, a hole in the pants. But when we say defect, it's designed that way, correct?
Right. It's just it looks abnormal, but that's actually how it's supposed to be. That's what they have an opening there.
And the sides on each pants, you can see a zipper at the top and the zipper along the sides.
Correct. And you also can see the wide waistband that goes around the mid-abdomen area.
People's 126. Dr. Denton, in People's 126, can you explain to me what we're seeing here?
Sure. So what you're looking at, first, what you see at the bottom is her identification tag. That's her case number N-23-112. So that goes with her body. So all the pictures are for Miss Bliefnick. You can see her black underwear. So once the compression pants are removed, she has properly positioned black underwear. And underlying that black underwear is a purple-blue towel. And then above that are 3 foam compression pads that are actually pushed against her skin.
And above those compression pads, do we notice something on the upper right chest, the left part of the photograph?
Yes, those are 2 of the 9 gunshot wounds on her torso.
The white compression pads, as you described them, again, what's the purpose of those compression pads?
Those are to add support or structure to the skin and the body to hold it together. And they were under the compression pants. So the pants were pushing on the foam padding and then the padding was pushing against her skin and body.
Now, Dr. Denton, we've seen some crime scene photos already, and on the crime scene photos, there was not much blood on the ground. There was not much blood on the ground at all. Based on what you see in this picture, is there a reason why there wouldn't be much blood at the crime scene?
Yes.
Can you explain that for us?
Sure. So when I examined the wounds, most of the bleeding was inside her body. So there were lots of internal bleeding from the gunshot wounds. And also those padding and the compression pads are basically like bandages. So they're holding everything in and preventing blood from coming out. It's holding the blood inside her body.
You told us the underwear in People's 126 was properly placed?
As you can see in the picture, yes, her underwear is properly positioned, yes.
And there was no tearing or ripping on the underwear?
Not at all, no.
And you said there was a towel underneath the underwear?
As you can see, yes, there's a towel between the underwear, her perineum, and there's also an ice pack over her perineum.
And when you say perineum, can you explain to me what the perineum is?
Sure, it's the genital area between the thighs.
People's 127. Dr. Denton, in People's 127, the victim's underwear has been pulled down to a certain extent. Is that fair to say?
Yes, her underwear has been lowered to show, as I described, we go by layer. So the underwear is pulled and removed lower. So you can see the next layer would be that blue-purple towel. And then the next layer over her perineum or genital area is this blue ice pack material over her genital area. And then above that, you can see where she had surgery with vertical steri strips, and that was also sutured, and that appeared recent.
Dr. Denton, you also see what appears to be a dark or discolored area on the right side of the victim's upper thigh and extending down to the genital area or perineum, as you called it. Can you explain for me what that is and what the nature of that bruising is?
Sure. So that has a very long medical term. It's called ecchymosis, ECCHYMOSIS. That is basically bleeding from that surgical incision that is tracking downward along planes of tissue. So it's tracking downwards towards her genital area and the labia area, and they were swollen with that similar blue-purple bleeding, basically from some surgery.
And is that the result of the surgery or the scar wound that we see here with the steroid strips?
Yes.
People's 128, please. People's 128 would be the front side of that black underwear that we just saw.
Yes.
Again, no tearing or damage to the underwear.
Correct. There's no tearing, no damage, no fluids, so no abnormalities except for urine.
And people's 129, the back of that same underwear, again, no tearing, no damage to that.
Correct.
In your training and experience as a medical examiner, that condition of the underwear, that condition of the towel and ice pack, did that help you draw any conclusions?
It tells me that her underwear is properly positioned, her clothing is properly positioned. She has an ice pack over her perineum, and there's a towel over that to collect fluid, which also, the towel also had urine in it. So it tells me that that is normal surgical compression material.
People's 130. Again, a photograph of the towel, the ice pack, and the underwear.
Yes.
No damage to the towel, no tearing, no ripping at the towel.
No, they're all fine. Yes.
And the ice pack was in a complete state, no tearing, no damage to the ice pack.
Right. The ice pack was between her thighs over her genitals.
People's 131. People's 131 is a photograph of the victim's left hand. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Can you tell me what we see here?
What you're looking at in this picture is one of the 2 gunshot wounds on the back of the left side of her hand. So this is on the back of the mid hand where the trajectory rod is going through. That circular hole is the entrance wound. So the entrance wound entered on the back of her hand, went through the bones of her hand, and then came out on the palmar side or the palm side of her hand, and then grazed her thumb as it continued out. So it is a gunshot wound she sustained that went through the back of her hand, came out the palm, and grazed her thumb, and then kept going.
Dr. Denton, in your expertise as a forensic pathologist, have you ever heard of the phrase defensive wounds?
Yes.
Can you tell me what defensive wounds are?
Sure. Defensive wounds are basically that term, or warding off wounds or blocking wounds. Like when a boxer holds up their arms to defend their head from punches, a person will hold up their hands or arms or their legs if they have injuries to the lower body, trying to prevent blows or injury occurring to their body.
It's what we see in people's 131, in your expert opinion, a defensive wound.
Yes, I would call it a defensive wound, gunshot injury, yes.
People's 132. Again, this is the victim's same hand, left hand, correct?
It is.
And you mentioned there were 2, in fact, wounds to that left hand. Is this what we're looking at, the other wounds in that left hand?
You're looking at the second gunshot wound on her left hand. It's by the 5th finger area where I'm pointing with my finger. So it's on the back of the left hand near the 5th finger, and it just goes through the fleshy part or the soft tissue part of the hand and then exits where you can see the rod going up towards the ceiling. So it's basically going in that direction through her hand.
Again, in your training and experience, would you consider this to be a defensive gunshot wound?
Yes, it is.
In the course of your autopsy, did you recover some rounds from Becky's body? When I say rounds, projectiles, bullets.
Right, yes. I recovered 3 projectiles or bullets from her body, yes.
And those were taken into evidence, is that correct?
They were, yes.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked People's Exhibits 205 through 207. And I believe they've already been introduced, but I'm going to ask you if you could take a look at those for me.
Okay.
And are those the bullets that you removed from Becky Bliefnick?
Yes, they've been packaged over my package, but yes, they're describing from the McLean County Coroner's Office, one fired bullet. It says medium caliber copper jacketed bullet from the left mid-back. That's where I recovered one of the bullets in her left mid-back. The other one was in the mid-upper back, and that's where I recovered another bullet, and it says McLean County Coroner's Office, and I can feel a bullet. And then the third one says copper jacketed bullet from the mid-thoracic spinal canal from the McLean County Coroner's Office, and I did recover a bullet from her spinal canal.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 208. And again, if you could look at that.
Okay.
The white foam pads that we saw in one of the previous pictures, are those the white foam pads that you're holding there that we saw in the pictures?
Yes, it says, it feels like the 3 foam pads inside this sealed evidence bag. And it says foam pads removed from Rebecca Bliefnick, and it says McLean County Coroner's Office. And that's consistent with it, yes. And it says foam pads.
And People's Exhibit 209. Does that appear to be the ice pack and towel that we previously?
It definitely feels like the ice pack are removed from her perineal area, and it says towel and ice pack are removed from Rebecca Bliefnick, and it says McLean County Coroner's Office, and the bag is also labeled towel and ice pack.
And I'll hand you both People's 210 and 211. I'd ask you to look at 211 first.
211, basically it has writing beneath this evidence tape says underwear, and then the tag says underwear removed from Rebecca Bliefnick, McLean County Coroner's Office, and it feels as the pair of underwear, the black underwear, and then this one says pants, and then the label says pants removed from Rebecca Bliefnick, McLean County Coroner's Office, and it feels similar to the compression pants I removed from her body.
Your Honor, I'd ask that those exhibits that have been identified by the doctor be introduced and admitted into evidence.
Ms. Schnock, I believe the ones that haven't been admitted are 208, which are the foam pads. Any objection?
No.
They will be admitted. 209, the ice pack and towel. Any objection?
No objection.
Will be admitted. 210 is the pants that were removed. Any objection?
No objection.
That will be admitted. 211, the underwear. Any objection?
No objection.
And Mr. Jones, I believe those are the exhibits that have not been admitted.
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed.
Dr. Denton, are you familiar with the term sexual assault kit?
Yes.
Can you tell me in a general sense what a sexual assault kit is?
Sure. So a sexual assault kit is basically evidence I can collect from my body during an autopsy examination. It includes clipping the fingernails or the ends of the fingernails if they're natural or acrylic. It includes swabs collected from the mouth area, the vaginal area, the rectal area are all swabbed. Also any clothing material or any foreign material from the body.
Now, did you do a sexual assault kit in this case?
Yes.
Dr. Denton, when you performed the autopsy, did you also determine whether or not there was any fluid in the vaginal area?
I did, by multiple means. One was visually. I looked to see if there was any abnormal fluid. When I placed the swabs in her genital area, again, removing the swabs, I was looking for any foreign material such as semen or other fluid material or blood. There was none. And then when I used an alternative light source, a blue light that highlights abnormal fluids and saliva and other materials, and that was also negative.
Dr. Denton, the pants weren't torn, the underwear was in the right position, there was a towel and ice pack over her perineum, her genital area, and at that point you had seen no semen or fluids in her genital area, why would you perform a sexual assault kit?
Just in case someone wants to know if there was one or not, we can, you can say either way. You can't go back. So you get one chance to do it, so you just do it. And if you do it and no one has a question, it's done, it's over. If someone has a question of whether she was sexual assaulted, you could test it if you wanted to.
Did you see any evidence of sexual assault in your autopsy?
No, she was not sexually assaulted.
Did you also, in conducting that sexual assault kit, you talked about fingernail clippings, fingernail scrapings. Did you do that in this case as well?
Yes.
And were those included, those results included in, again, what we call a sexual assault kit, People's Exhibit 212?
Yes, that is part of the kit, including head hair, pubic hair, combing of the pubic hair, combing of the head hair. All those things are placed within this sexual assault kit box, and I sign it and put her case number, and it's taped and sealed, and those are my initials.
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibit 212 be introduced and admitted into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No objection.
212 will be admitted.
Doctor, if I could approach you with.
You may.
Dr. Denton, if I could take 2 of those photographs back from you, please. Dr. Denton, did you also take a photograph of, well, the photograph that you saw in People's Exhibit 133, a photograph of the victim from the torso down?
Yes.
Can you tell me in a general sense, and I haven't shown that photograph yet, what that photograph shows?
The photograph of her torso with the clothing removed basically shows 9 gunshot wounds to her torso from her right breast area to her pelvis in a kind of a up and down pattern. Gunshot wounds to her right, and gunshot wounds to her right arm.
Your Honor, at this point, I'd ask permission from court to publish People's 133 to the members of the jury and ask the doctor some questions about them.
You may.
Dr. Denton, as we look at this photo, and starting at the top down, can you describe each of the individual wounds that we see in this photograph?
I can. There are many. So there are 9 gunshot wounds, basically starting as I'm pointing to my own body. So on the underside where her breast meets her chest, the first gunshot wound I described was on the right side of the chest, just beneath the breast, and that was a gunshot wound of entrance. It was atypical or a little irregular, and then it went through the skin, it went through the ribs, it went through the right lung, and then went through the back and ended up with one of those recovered bullets that were in her, just left of the midline in her back. So it basically went from straight across, from right to left and front to back. The next gunshot wound was actually involved her right breast, a little bit higher. There was another gunshot wound of entrance on her breast. That went through the breast tissue itself, and then it exited in that entrance wound. That's why that one wound on the left chest, on the right chest was atypical, because that wound went through her breast and through the breast tissue. So that just went a short distance. And then basically going down her chest, there were 2 more gunshot wounds to the lower rib margin. They were circular gunshot wounds. They went through the chest cavity. One of them bruised the right lung, went through the diaphragm, and then exited. One a little bit lower, about a little bit, tiny bit lower, went through the lower ribs and the chest, went through her upper chest area. I believe that one also had a bullet recovered. The one before it exited. And then going down her abdomen area, basically from the lower rib margin to her pelvis area, there were 5 more gunshot wounds, kind of in a linear downward pattern. They were circular, consistent with gunshot wounds. One of them went through the spine and then actually lodged in the spine, so it got the spinal cord in her back. And the rest of them exited. They went through her intestines. They caused a large amount of intestinal bleeding. They caused intestinal gas to form. The bacteria went into her abdomen. And she basically did not have any, she barely had any blood in her blood vessels. So she basically internally bled to death.
And then what about the wounds to her arm?
Sure, so on her right arm, where, again, I can demonstrate best on myself, there was a through and through gunshot wound on her right forearm on the side, approximately where my finger is pointing. It went through the arm, through the elbow crease, and just above the elbow it exited. There was another one that went through the flesh part of the mid-arm, and then one just above that also went through the arm. So she had 3 gunshot wounds that went through her right arm, basically going right to left through her body.
Again, would you consider those in your expertise to be considered defensive gunshot?
They could be, yes, if her arm is raised, because when I traced those pathways, when I moved her arm 90 degrees, 2 of them made straight lines. So her arm was bent at 90 degrees when she sustained 2 of those wounds. So that'd be consistent with raising her right arm.
You also told us that one of the bullet wounds hit her spinal cord. Is that right?
Right, one of the wounds, one of the 2 recovered bullets in her abdomen that did not leave her body and exit on her back actually hit the spine. One hit the spine bone and then stopped, but did not hit the cord. The other one went into the spine and also struck the spinal cord itself. So it would have basically paralyzed her from the waist down.
Of the 14 wounds that you saw, the 9 to the chest, the 3 to her right arm, and the 2 to her left hand, would any of those wounds have been immediately fatal?
Immediately, no.
What was her manner of death? What led to her death?
So what led to her death, or from the gunshot wounds created defects and bleeding inside her body. So the mechanism or process of her dying is internal bleeding. So one went through, the one that was highest up on her chest, beneath the breast, went through her right lung. So that was the most serious. The most, I would say, most quickly fatal. The rest of them are all serious because they're fatal, going through her intestines and her spine. But the one through her right lung would cause shortness of breath and bleeding. And then the rest of them would cause bleeding also.
How long would it take her to bleed to death?
Again, none of the bullet wounds struck her heart. She did not have any gunshot wounds to the head. Conservatively and fairly, she would have been alive after these gunshot wounds at least several minutes.
And she would not have been able to move because her spinal cord was hit.
Correct.
And she would not, it would be more difficult for her to breathe because one of the bullets hit the lung.
Correct.
Would it have been painful?
Objection.
That'll be overruled.
Would it have been painful?
In my opinion as a medical doctor, yes, that would have been painful. Her gunshot wounds were painful, yes.
Dr. Denton, you've shared with us that the wounds, and if I say this wrong, please correct me, the wounds were front to back, and the majority of them were from, if I say up to down, does that make sense? Or,
No.
okay, I tell you what, why don't you say it?
Sure.
Because I am obviously not there.
So there's movement of her body when she's sustaining these 14 gunshot wounds. She is not stationary or standing in one position or in one position of her body. The 2 gunshot wounds on her chest, or actually the 4 gunshot wounds on her chest, basically went from right to left, horizontally through her body and backwards. 2 of them went slightly upwards, and then the rest of them were all, I would say, down to up. So the ones on her abdomen were going up through her body, from the lower abdomen, they were going upwards through her body.
What does that tell you about the position of her body in relationship to the position of the weapon that fired those bullets, those projectiles?
Sure, so that complex question basically means that where I have an exit wound or a bullet, and I trace that path through the body and I have an entrance wound, I can project out into space where the muzzle of the gun that fired that bullet would come from. It's greater than 2 feet away. I can't tell you how far further than 2 feet away, but it tells me that the gunshot wounds to her chest area were coming from the right side of her body and went across at one point. And then the ones that are in her abdomen are going upward, so they're coming from the floor area. So if she's standing, the gun is coming from the floor, or if she's falling back or laying flat, they're coming from her feet in an elevated position.
And you shared with us, in order to do that, you would place a rod or a stick in the entrance wound and the exit wound to demonstrate that path that the projectile took, and then extrapolate that to the path that it took when it entered the body. Is that correct?
Correct. That's why we use trajectory rods, to demonstrate the pathway so that this can be shown to other people.
And you did use those trajectory rods in this case?
I did.
And is that reflected in the photograph in People's 134?
I believe that's the correct number, yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would ask permission of the court to publish that to the jury in the same manner.
You may.
Is what I'm holding up, Doctor, People's 134,
Yep.
showing those trajectory rods?
I believe that is the correct number, and it does show her body laying prone on the autopsy examination table with those gunshot wounds tracked. And those, I used multicolored plastic trajectory rods to show the angle, so you can see at her chest, they're basically going from the front and sideways, right to left. And then as you move down her body, the angle goes from base to down at a downward slanting angle. So it goes from basically into her body forwards and then goes down as you move down her body.
Are all 14 bullet paths traced here?
No.
You just use, I think, 9, is that right?
Right, I showed the trunk area, and I believe there's one in the arm, the right arm, that also is shown.
If I have just one moment.
You may.
If I could give these to the clerk, Your Honor. These are
may.
133 and 134. And I have no further questions.
Cross, Ms. Schnock.
Very briefly, Your Honor, good morning, Dr. Denton.
Good morning.
I'm not going to take up much more of your time this morning. You've been able to give us a lot of information regarding these wounds during your direct, but your examination cannot tell us in what order those 14 shots occurred. Is that fair?
That's correct. I cannot scientifically tell you which one was first, second, third, or fourth, or last.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Denton.
I'd ask that Dr. Denton be released from his subpoena.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
You are released. You're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
People would call Trent Carlicker.
Sir, if you could step to the front of the courtroom, please. And then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, and if you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then kind of scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and that microphone bends, so bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please.
Thank you.
You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
Trent Carlicker.
Everybody hear Mr. Carlicker, okay? Mr. Carlicker, what do you do for a living?
I work for the Illinois State Police. I'm a forensic scientist and I specialize in latent prints.
Let me start with this. In order to work for the Illinois State Police as a forensic scientist, did you have to receive any special training?
Yes,
Did you go to college, I assume?
yes, I did.
And where'd you go to college?
I went to Lindenwood
In St. Louis?
in St. Louis, yes.
And what was your major?
Bachelor's of Science with a concentration in environmental science.
After you graduated from Lindenwood University, did you get some other training from the Illinois State Police?
Yes, I have completed a 2-year comprehensive training program through the Illinois State Police. The training program consisted of lab practical exercises, written test, criterion testing where I had to score 100% in order to move on. The training program also included side-by-side comparison exercises between latent prints and known standards. And it also included 1 year of supervised casework.
Did you pass all that?
Yes,
And you got the job at the Illinois State Police?
yes, sir.
And you've been working for them since?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been working for the Illinois State Police?
This will be my 7th year.
As you've been working for the Illinois State Police, you need to continue to show proficiency and continue to pass random exams or yearly exams to maintain your position with.
Yes, I am proficiency tested once a year by an outside agency.
And have you passed all those proficiency tests?
Yes,
And you specifically passed those proficiency tests in the area of latent prints examination, recovery, that type of thing.
yes,
Your Honor, at this point, we'd ask that the witness be recognized as an expert in that particular area, latent prints.
And Ms. Schnock, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Court will certify the witness as an expert in latent fingerprints or latent prints. All right, good.
What are fingerprints?
friction-ridged skin is skin that is found on the palm sides of hands.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. You said friction-ridged skin.
Yes.
What's that?
So friction-ridged skin is skin that is found on the palm sides of hands and the soles of feet. It's different from other skin on the body because it has raised corrugated ridges and furrows, commonly referred to as valleys. Friction-ridged skin only has sweat glands. It does not have any oil glands, and it does not have any hair follicles. So for fingerprints, they're specifically referring to the area of friction-ridged skin from the tips of the fingers down to the first joint.
What is it about fingerprints that make it, that you can identify different fingerprints?
There are levels of detail in a fingerprint. Those fingerprint details are first, second, and third level detail. First level detail is the overall shape of the patterns, which are normally loops, swirls, and arches. Second level detail is individual characteristics of the ridges. Third level detail could be the shape, pore size, placement, and any scarring or creasing that could be present in the print.
And does everyone have a different fingerprint?
No two prints have ever been found to be the same. Fingerprints differ from finger to finger on a person. Even identical twins have different fingerprints.
I suppose technically they have different friction-rich skin, and fingerprints are something else. Is that fair to say?
The friction-rich skin is the same for everybody, but the fingerprint patterns are different from finger to finger on a person.
So what I'm saying is the fingerprint is actually what would be left on the surface if they touch it. It's caused by the friction-rich skin. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that print would be referred to as a latent print.
And what are latent prints then?
A latent print is an unintentional impression that is left behind on a surface when friction-ridged skin comes in contact with that item. Often they're unseen by the naked eye. They could be composed of anything that can coat the surface of the skin. So it could be sweat, oil, blood, or dirt, just to name a few.
And then how are those latent prints recovered?
They're recovered by processing the evidence. If I find any latent prints on any of the evidence, I photograph them in order to preserve them.
You said latent prints are made by sweat, dirt, dust, things like that. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Are latent prints something that can be wiped away?
Yes, latent prints are extremely delicate, so merely touching an object could destroy it.
when a piece of evidence comes into you to examine, are you often asked to do latent print testing and DNA testing on the same item?
I would just cover the latent print portion of that testing.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is if somebody swabs that item for DNA before it gets to you to test for latent prints, can that have an effect on any latent prints?
Yes,
Because the process of swabbing it, you said, can destroy the latent print.
yes,
When you're looking for latent prints, can that affect the ability to recover DNA?
yes,
You said latent prints are delicate.
yes, they are.
They can be affected by temperature,
Yes,
pressure,
yes,
movement.
yes,
In this case, were you given a shell casing to determine if you could find latent prints on a shell casing?
yes.
In a general sense, are there things about a shell casing that makes it hard to find latent prints on them?
Yes,
Can you explain that for me?
sure. Typically, the ideal surface for latent print deposits are flat, smooth surfaces that are larger. So curved, textured, smaller surfaces are not ideal for depositing latent prints.
The fact that a bullet in the shell casing is fired from a gun, does that have an impact on the ability to recover latent prints as well?
I'm sure that's one of the variables, yes.
In this case, you were given People's Exhibit 193 and asked to examine it for latent prints, is that correct?
Yes,
And for the record, I handed you what's been marked and introduced into evidence as People's 193. Mr. Carlicker, were you able to find any latent prints on that item?
no,
You were also given a handgun recovered from the defendant's house and some magazines that related to that handgun as well. Is that right?
yes,
Were you able to find any latent prints on that handgun?
no,
Any latent prints on the magazines?
no,
You were also given a window and window frame that was removed from the victim's house. Is that right?
yes,
Were you able to recover any latent prints? Were there any suitable prints on that window item?
no.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Questions, Ms. Schnock?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Sir, during your analysis of all of these items, you were unable to recover any fingerprints that were able to be linked to Timothy Bliefnick, correct?
I was unable to find any suitable prints at all.
Okay. No other questions, Judge?
Any further questions?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
We'd ask that Mr. Carlicker be released from his subpoena.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No.
You are free to go, sir. Call your next witness.
People would call Lauren Vunovich.
Ladies and gentlemen, while we're waiting, if you want to stand up for a minute and stretch, you may do that. All right, please be seated. Now, if you step to the front of the courtroom, please, and then raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Okay, if you'll come around here and have a seat right here in this chair. And then if you'll scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and then bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone.
Okay.
All
Yep.
right?
Sounds good.
You may inquire.
Can you tell me your name, please?
My name is Lauren Vunitich, Lauryn, last name Vunetich.
Sounds like maybe you've done this before.
A few times, yes.
Where do you work?
I'm employed by the Illinois State Police at the Springfield Forensic Science Laboratory.
What do you do for the Illinois State Police at the Forensic Science Laboratory?
I am a forensic scientist specializing in firearms, tool marks, footwear, and tire track identification.
Your Honor, in this case, the parties will stipulate, I believe, that Ms. Vunicic is an expert in the area of firearms examination.
All right, the court will accept that stipulation. You may proceed.
Specifically, ma'am, are you familiar with what is called the NIBIN system or the NIBIN database?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what NIBIN is?
Yes. NIBIN stands for National Integrated Ballistics Information Network, and it's a database that we put fired cartridge cases into, such as ones that are left behind at a scene of a crime or from a test shot from a firearm. Then once those cartridge cases are into the database, pictures are taken of them, and a computer algorithm generates a list of cases that can be reviewed, and that's called a correlation list.
You said that shell casings, fired shell casings, photographs are taken and placed into this database. What is it about fired shell casings that are so important to an investigation?
The reasons fired shell casings are so important is that there are marks present on that fired shell casing from being fired in a firearm that we can use to determine, how many guns or how many firearms were used in a case.
And Ms. Vunicic, I'm getting a sign from the court reporter that perhaps we're both talking a little fast.
Okay.
So I'll try to slow down.
Okay.
I'll try. Ms. Vunicic, is it fair to say then every firearm leaves different marks on the shell casings that it fires?
Yes, that is true.
Just like every person has different fingerprints, every firearm will leave different evidence on every shell casing it fires.
Yes,
And every shell casing that's fired from the same gun would have those same marks.
that is correct.
And no two guns would leave the same marks on shell casings.
That is correct.
So based on the shell casings, you can tell that they were fired by the same gun, and if you have a gun, you can tell that it was fired by a particular gun.
That is correct.
It's the purpose of NIBIN then to take this fired evidence, these shell casings from either unsolved crimes or things like that, and put them in a database where they can be compared to new shell casings as they come into the system.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is fair to say.
In this case, you particularly had a piece of fired evidence from a firearm that was found in the defendant's home. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
It was a shell casing that was given to you, correct?
I wasn't given the shell casing.
I apologize. The shell casing was given to the Illinois State Police and was entered into NIBIN. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then you review the NIBIN report to determine if there is any correlation between that shell casing and shell casings that have already been entered into NIBIN.
Yes, I did that correlation review.
In this case, was the shell casing that came from the gun that was found in the defendant's home, was there any correlation in NIBIN that was found?
No, there was no correlation found.
There was also a shell casing, or 8 shell casings found in the victim's home as well. I don't know if you know that, but there were. Assuming that for a second, there was a shell casing that was entered into NIBIN from that as well by the Illinois State Police.
Yes,
And that shell casing that was entered from the victim's home into NIBIN, that was reviewed in NIBIN to determine if there was a correlation to any other unsolved crimes.
that is correct, yes.
And when that was done, there was no correlation found to any previous unsolved crimes.
That is correct, no correlation was found.
And again, just so we're clear, the other shell casing was fired from the gun that was found in the defendant's home, and there was no correlation to any unsolved crimes from that shell casing as well.
That is correct.
That's all the questions I have.
Any questions, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down, and I assume she's released from her subpoena and free to go?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to take our morning recess now, so you can have approximately 20 minutes, so let's be ready to go at 10:15.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. That's your report now stands for recess.
All right. Mr. Jones, and your next witness will take a little while?
Yes.
Okay, and do we only have the one witness left?
Yes, I would anticipate probably, I mean, what time are we starting?
10:15.
Probably 11:30, 11:45 would be my guess is what time will all be done.
All right, anything else we need to bring up before we break?
Nothing for the people.
Nothing here, Your Honor.
All right, we will be in recess. We are back on the record on 23 CF 170, People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick appears in person and with counsel, Ms. Casey Schnock. People appear by Assistant State's Attorneys Josh Jones and Laura Keck. And Mr. Jones, anything before we bring the jury in?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring in the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. The Session Circuit Court is now reconvened with the Honorable Robert Catering, Judge presiding. Please be seated.
We are continuing with the prosecution's case in chief, and Mr. Jones, you have another witness.
I do. People would call Eric Cowick to the stand.
If you will step to the front of the courtroom, raise your right hand and be sworn by the clerk.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a seat right here. Scoot up to the table to where you're comfortable and bend that microphone so it's in front of you and speak towards the microphone, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then, Mr. Jones, you may inquire.
Tell me your name, please.
Eric Cowick.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a detective for the Quincy Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Quincy Police Department?
Over 7 years.
And how long have you been a detective?
Over 2 years.
Detective Cowick, were you one of the detectives that was assigned to the investigation into the homicide of Rebecca Becky?
Yes, sir.
When did you start your investigation?
February 23rd, 2023.
You were at the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
Specifically, while you were at the crime scene, was a cell phone found?
Yes, sir.
A cell phone behind the door, is that right?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 216. And was this that cell phone that was behind the door that we saw in a previous picture?
Yes, sir, it was.
Detective Cowick, was there a phone extraction done on that at the behest of the Quincy Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And that was done by the Illinois State Police?
Yes, it was.
Going to hand you what's been marked and introduced as evidence as People's Exhibit 217. Is that a hard drive that contains that extraction?
Yes, sir, it is.
Detective Cowick, was one of your roles in the investigation to look at that extraction, to go through that extraction.
Yes, sir.
And when you went through that extraction, were you able to find data about February 23rd, 2023 specifically, but many, many other dates as well?
Yes, sir, I was.
In this case, right now, I'm going to focus on February 23rd, 2023.
Yes, sir.
When you looked at the information on that extraction from the victim's phone, the phone that was found behind that door, were you able to determine approximately what time the last actual activity was done before 1:11 a.m.?
Last activity was Facebook icon at approximately 12:38 or
53 a.m.
12:53. Yes, sir.
on February 23rd, 2023.
Yes, sir.
And on February 23rd, 2023, at 12:53 a.m., that phone that was found behind the door was connected to Facebook.
Yes, sir.
Was there any activity after that?
It was not.
At 1:11 a.m. and 10 seconds, was there something else that was done with that phone?
A phone number. A number was dialed.
And what number was that? And that was at 1:11 a.m. and 10 seconds.
Yes, sir, it was.
After 1:11 and 10 a.m. and 2 seconds, was there any outgoing activity from that phone?
No, sir, it wasn't.
Was there some incoming activity?
Yes.
Messages from other people
Yes.
in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Did you go through the text messages that were on that phone?
I did.
Did you find some text messages between the victim, Becky Bliefnick, and a person by the name of Ted Johnson?
I did. Yes, sir.
Did you review all those text messages?
I did.
And reviewing those text messages, did you find any angry text messages?
No, sir.
Objection.
Um,
May we
I'm,
approach?
I'm going to have you, that'll be sustained. I'm going to have you rephrase that question, Mr. Jones.
Did you find any text messages where either Rebecca Bliefnick or Ted Johnson used swear words at each other?
No.
Where they talked about the end of a relationship?
No, sir.
Where they discussed dissatisfaction with each other in any way?
No, sir.
On February 23rd and after that time, was one of the things that you were doing as a detective in this case, looking for video footage from that area?
Yes, sir.
In that area, are there traffic cameras?
Traffic cameras? No, I don't believe in that area. No, sir.
There are no traffic cameras or at intersections in the area of the victim's home.
No, sir.
Are there any traffic cameras anywhere in Quincy, Illinois?
Yes, sir.
Do any of those even record them?
No, sir.
They're just live feed. You don't
Correct.
have the ability to record them and review them at a later date.
Correct.
No cameras in Quincy like that.
No cameras in Quincy like that.
In connection with your role as a detective in this case, did you also review some records from the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Specifically, in two areas, did you review the defendant's phone records from AT&T?
Yes, sir.
And did you review records from the defendant's laptop?
I did.
And specifically, was the defendant's laptop, was an extraction done on behalf of the Quincy Police Department by the Illinois State Police?
It was.
And that was done and included as People's Exhibit 162, is that right?
Yes, sir. It is.
And we've previously heard testimony that there are multiple exhibits on that desktop,
Yes, sir.
or not desktop, I'm sorry, on that hard drive, is that right?
Yes, there is.
And you were able to differentiate between the exhibit that deals with the defendant's laptop, which I believe is exhibit
47.
47, and the defendant's cell phone, which is exhibit
111.
111. Right now, we're going to talk about his laptop, which, as you said, was
47, sir.
47. hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 162-2. Let me know when you've had a chance to look through that, please.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what those are?
These are search history on the defendant's laptop.
When you looked at that extraction, how many pages of data were on there conservatively?
Lots.
Thousands of pages?
Yes, sir. There's a lot.
Tens of thousands,
Yes,
tens of
sir.
thousands perhaps?
There's a lots.
And you went through those pages and you found things that you thought in your training and experience as a detective were relevant?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we'd ask that People's Exhibits 162-2 as a group exhibit be introduced into evidence. Again, for the record, it is a subset of People's 162, and even more specifically, Exhibit 47 on 162.
Ms. Schnock, any objection?
No.
It will be admitted as 162-2. 162's already been admitted, so people may differentiate 162-2 from the rest of that exhibit. You may proceed.
And we'd ask leave to publish that to the jury, Your Honor.
You may publish it.
Apologize, Your Honor, apparently the projector turned off.
That's why you've got the stuff there.
And if we can go to the first slide, please. Detective Cowick, I want to look at what we have on the screen, and again, it's Exhibit 162. On the left side, you see a date, 2/13/23, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And next to it is a time and military time, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That was the date and time that came on the records that you received, right?
Yes, it is.
The date and time that was extracted from the computer and you reviewed.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me 2/13/23, what is 14:02? What time is that?
2:02 p.m.
In the after 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes, sir.
And then if we slide down to 197 at 2/14/23, at 1:10 a.m., there's a search that is done on the defendant's computer. Is that right?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what's that search?
License plate lookup on Google search.
And we've had that blown up here. So at 2/14/23 at 1:10 a.m., the defendant's computer is used for license plate lookup. Is that right?
That's correct.
If we look down below that, there's a search that's labeled 198. Correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And that's also done on the 14th at 1:10 a.m.
It is.
And what was that search?
License plate lookup.
And then there's another search that's done at number 199. So that would be the third search after 197 on the 14th at 2 in 2023. And at 1:10 a.m., what was that search?
License plate lookup.
And search number 200 at 1:10 a.m. on that same date, February 14th. What is that search?
Illinois license plate lookup.
And search number 201 at 1:10 a.m. was what?
Illinois license plate lookup.
202 at 1:10 a.m.
Illinois license plate lookup.
Search number 203 at 1:10 a.m.
License plates guide.
204 at 1:10 a.m.
License plates guide.
2:05, still on the 14th at 1:11 a.m.
Title and registration.
2:06, another search on the 14th at 1:11 a.m.
Title and registration.
2:07 at 1:11 a.m.
Title and registration status inquiry.
2:08 at 1:11 a.m. on the 14th.
Title and registration status inquiry.
2:09 at 1:11 a.m.
Illinois license plate lookup, staterecords.org.
2:10 at 1:11 a.m.
Illinois license plate lookup, staterecords.org.
2:11 at 1:11 a.m.
Illinois license plate lookup, staterecords.org.
2:12 at 1:11 a.m.
Illinois license plate lookup, staterecords.org.
Do the searches continue?
Yes, sir.
If we could go to the next page. And if we could have that one more. Search number 213, and I think we started at 197, is that right?
That is correct.
So search number 213 at 1:12 a.m., still on the 14th, was what?
Illinois license plate lookup, free vehicle history, vincheck.info.
What is a VIN check? What is VIN?
It's a vehicle identification number for every vehicle.
On the 14th of the 14th of 2023, at 1:12 a.m., search number 214.
Illinois license plate lookup, free vehicle history, vincheck.info.
And another search for the same thing at 2:12
112, sir?
or 1:12?
Yes, sir. Illinois license plate lookup, free vehicle history, vincheck.info.
And another check for the same thing at 1:12 again, that's search number 216, same search.
Yes, sir.
Search number 217 at 1:12, again, Illinois license plate lookup, Illinois plate number check, correct?
Yes, sir.
Search number 218 at 1:12 a.m., license plate lookup, Illinois plate number check.
Yes, sir.
Then from 1:12 to 1:13 a.m. on the 14th of February 2023, we have search 219, 220, 221, 222, 223, and 224, all for free vehicle history reports and VIN check.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right?
Yes, sir. It is.
Then on the 14th at 1:14 a.m., we have search 217 and 227 and 228, both for free VIN check reports and VIN check.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Then search 230 at 1:14 a.m. on the 14th of February, free VIN check report and VIN check.
Yes, sir.
Search 231 and 232 at 1:15 a.m., free vehicle history report checks and VIN check.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Then on the 14th at 1:15 a.m., search 233, Missouri license plate owner lookup, Google search.
Yes, sir.
If we could go to the next page. And if we could have that blown up, please. And on the 14th of February, 2023 at 1:15 a.m., defendant's computer is used to search Missouri license plate owner lookup.
That is correct.
And on the 14th at 1:15 a.m., we have another Google search, and what's that for, Detective?
Missouri license plate owner lookup.
And at 1:15 a.m., then we have two searches on the 14th, that's 236 and 237. Missouri license plate lookup, staterecords.org.
Yes, sir.
Then at 1:15 a.m., we have two searches, 238, 239. Free Missouri license plate lookup, free vehicle history report. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then 1 minute later at 1:16 on the 14th of February 2023, we have two searches for Missouri state records, staterecords.org.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And then also at 1:16, we have two searches, 242 and 243, license plate check.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
At 1:17 a.m., we have a search for Missouri State Records, staterecords.org.
Correct.
Same search, and search 245, also at 1:17.
Correct.
Searches 246 and 247. On the 14th of February at 1:17 a.m., license plate decode result.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And searches 248 and 249 at 1:18 a.m., sample vehicle history report. And then there's a number that follows, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Next slide, please. We can have that blown up. Search 249, again, 118, that same sample vehicle history report search. Correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Then at 1:20 a.m. on the 14th of February, 2023, we have two searches for Missouri State Records.
Correct.
And at the same date at 1:20 a.m. on the 25th, search 252 and 253, State Records checkout.
Correct.
And 254, 255, we have staterecords.org and staterecords.org, both at 1:21 a.m.
Correct.
Searches 256 and 257 on the 14th of February at 1:21 a.m., staterecords.org.
Correct.
Then 258, 259, 260, 261, 262, 263, all on the 14th of February at 1:22, staterecords.org members area.
That is correct.
At 1:24 on February 14th, 2023, searches 264 and 265. What do we see there, Detective?
How to look up Missouri license plates and report bad drivers, YouTube.
We go to the next page and have that blown up. Search 266 and 267 at 1:24 a.m. What do we see there?
Free license plate lookup and report bad drivers.
Then at 2:14, February 14th, 2023 at 1:25, searches 268 and 269. What do we see him searching for there?
Reports for plate number 8DCJ55 in Missouri, United States.
And Your Honor, for the record, I am now going to hold up in front of the jury what's previously been admitted as People's Exhibit 6, the license plates for Ted Johnson that were on his truck on February 14, 2023, when he was parked behind the victim's home.
You may.
And Detective, can you see what I'm holding up?
I can, yes, sir.
Can you tell me what the license plate number that I'm holding up is?
8DCJ55, Missouri.
At 1:25 on February 14, 2023, after the defendant's computer looks for that license plate number, what are the next two searches?
License plate lookup and report bad drivers, find by plate.
And at 1:25 on the 14th of 2023, search 272 and 273. What is he searching for?
Searching for 8DCJ55, infotracer.com.
274 at 1:25 a.m. on the 14th.
Reports for plate number 8DCJ55 in Missouri, United States.
And at 1:25, 275, what do we see?
Searching for 8DCJ55, infotracer.com.
And at 1:25 and 276, we see reports for plate number 8DCJ55 in Missouri, United States.
Correct.
277 at 1:25 a.m., what do we see from infotracer.com?
Searching for 8DCJ55.
And at 1:26 and 278 and 279, what do we see from infotracer.com?
Results for 8DC-J55.
And in 280 at 1:27 a.m. on the 14th of February 2023, what do we see?
Secure and instant checkout. Info tracer.
And in 281 at 1:27 a.m.
The same. Secure and instant checkout. Info tracer.
You can go to the next slide, please. And if we have that blowing up. 282 on the 14th of February 2023 at 1:28 a.m. What do we see?
Missouri license plate owner lookup. Google search.
And 283?
Missouri license plate owner lookup. Google search.
284?
Missouri license plate owner lookup.
285 at 1:28 a.m. on February 14th, 2023.
Info tracer members area.
And that's 285 at 1:28, 286, 287, 288, correct?
Correct.
All on February 14, 2023 at 1:28 a.m. Is that right?
That is correct.
289 and 290 at 1:28 a.m. What do we see?
Missouri license plate owner lookup free. Google search.
Next slide, please. Could have that blown up. 291 on the 14th of February 2023 at 1:28 a.m. Missouri license plate owner lookup free.
That's correct.
And then at 1:28 a.m., 292 and 293 are both info tracer, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
And then 294 through 299 on the 14th, 2023 at 1:28 a.m., info tracer members area.
Yes, sir.
300, February 14th, 2023 at 1:28 a.m., free Missouri license plate lookup, correct?
Yes, sir.
And 301, same thing at 1:28 a.m.
That's correct.
Next slide, please. We could have that blown up. 302 at 1:28 a.m., 303 at 1:28 a.m., and 304 at 1:29 a.m., all on February 14, 2023. Free Missouri license plate lookup. Enter any plate and search.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Same thing in 305 at 1:29 a.m.
Yes, it is.
And 306 and 307 at 1:29 a.m. What do we see?
Driving record search.
308 and 309 at 1:29 a.m. on February 14th.
Free Missouri license plate lookup info tracer.
310 and 311 at 1:30 a.m.
Driving record search.
And 312 and 313 on the 14th of February 2023 at 1:30 a.m.
Searchquery.com checkout.
Next slide. And if you have that blown up. Then from 314 to 316, the number of the activity searches, on the 14th of February 2023 at 1:31 a.m., we see three more, searchquery.com.
Correct, sir.
And then at 1:31 and 3:17, we see another searchquery.com.
Yes, sir.
And then from 3:18 to 3:23 on the 14th at 1:31 a.m., we see searchquery.com members area.
That's correct.
At 3:24 and 3:25 at 1:31 a.m. on February 14th, 2023, what do we see there?
How do I find the owner of a license plate in Missouri? Google search.
And can you read 3:26 for me at 1:31 a.m. same date?
How do I find the owner of a license plate in Missouri?
Then there's a gap from 1:31 to 1:36. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you also, I think you told us, you also reviewed the defendant's cell phone, his AT&T records. Is that right?
I did review that, yes.
And at 1:32 a.m., was there a phone call that was placed from the defendant's phone to a particular number?
There was.
And can we quickly go to that slide?
Would I be able to get some water?
Yes.
Apologize. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, we can stop. Ladies and gentlemen, you may stand and stretch for a couple minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Oh, Just get if you blank the screen until we're ready. Thank you.
All right, please be seated. You may proceed.
And for the record, we now have People's Exhibit 164 that's been previously admitted as evidence on the screen and highlighted a phone call at 2:14:23 with a UTC time of 7:32:35. You know what UTC time is, right?
Yes, sir.
If I ask you to tell me what it is, can you do it in a succinct way?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
It's going to be minus 6 hours to our time zone.
So if it says 7:32 a.m., 3:35 UTC time, what time is that in Quincy time?
1:32 and 35 seconds a.m.
And you see an outgoing number of 257-3666, that's the number that's placing the call, correct?
Yes, sir.
That is the defendant's cell phone.
It is correct.
And you see a number 573-526-3669, that's the called number, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Did you call that number?
Yes, sir.
Who's that number go to?
The Illinois Department of Revenue.
Illinois?
Missouri Department of Revenue, I apologize.
What's the Missouri Department of Revenue do?
They handle all the vehicle registrations
And license plates
and license plates.
in the
Yes,
state of Missouri?
yes, sir.
If you go back to 162. So where we left off was the gap between 131 and 136, where the defendant's cell phone at 132 called the Missouri Department of Revenue.
Yes, sir.
At 1:36 a.m. on the 14th of February, 327 and 328, we see vehicle ownership and owner lookup by VIN number.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And same thing at number 328.
Yes.
Then we see 329 and 330. What do we see at 136?
VIN decoding.
And below that, 331, 332.
VIN decoder results.
And 333, 334 at 136 on the 14th of February, 223.
VIN checking.
Then 335 and 336 at 1:36 a.m. on February 14, 2023. What do you see?
Results. Search results, 2021 Toyota Tundra, 5TFAY5F1XMX 984278. Fax VIN.
I'm going to, and for the record, I'm showing the jury People's Exhibit number 8, which is the inside VIN number from Ted Johnson's 2021 Toyota Tundra truck. And Detective, I'm going to ask you if you can read the VIN number on the bottom of that for us.
Yes, sir. 5TFAY5F1XMX 984278.
Go to the next slide, please. Search 337, 338, 339. Can you read those three for us, please?
License plate verification on license plate 8DCJ55 in Missouri.
And then 342.
342 is license plate verification on license plate 8DCJ55 in Missouri.
That's at 1:37 a.m. on the 14th of February, 2023.
Correct.
Search 343, 344 at 1:37 a.m.
Searchquarry.com members area.
And 345, 346 at 1:38 a.m. staterecords.org members area.
Yes, correct.
And then below that, find a vehicle owner by VIN number free, how to run a VIN check and find a car owner.
Yes, sir, correct.
347, again, we started at 197 on 2/14/23 at 1:38 a.m. abestway.net.
Correct, yes, sir.
Find vehicle owner by VIN number free, how to run a VIN check and find a car owner.
Yes.
Same thing on 348 and 349.
Yes, sir.
351, 352, 1:39 a.m. VIN check and look up, search the owner by VIN auto detected.
Yes, sir.
139, search 353, 354 at 1:39 a.m. Searching for a particular VIN number.
Correct.
I won't have you read it again.
Yes, sir.
At infotracer.com.
Yes.
Same thing at 354, correct?
Yes, it is.
355 and 356, how to find a vehicle owner with a VIN number for free Quora.
Correct.
357, 358 at 1:40 a.m. on February 14, 2023. Report summary, infotracer.com.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Next slide, please. Blow that up. 359, 1:40 a.m. Secure and instant checkout, InfoTracer.
Correct.
360, 361, 362, all at 1:40 a.m. Secure and instant checkout, InfoTracer.
Yes, sir.
Next slide, please. 371 at 1:43 a.m. on the 14th of February, 2023. How to find the owner of a vehicle, Quora.
Yes, sir.
Same thing, 143 and 372, 373 and 374.
Correct.
Next slide, please. 375, 376, 377, 378, February 14th, 2023, 1:43 a.m. How to find the owner of a vehicle, Quora.
Correct.
379 and 380, 1:43 a.m. on the same day. How do you find the owner of a vehicle? Quora.
Correct.
381, 382 on February 14th, 2023 at 1:43 a.m. How to find the owner of a vehicle? Quora.
Correct.
383 on the 14th of February, 2023 at 1:44 a.m. Look up car owner by license plate Google search.
Correct.
384 at 1:44 a.m. Same date. Look up car owner by license plate.
Correct.
385, 1:44 a.m. Same date. Look up car owner by license plate Google search.
Correct.
386 at 1:44 a.m. Missouri DMV.
Correct.
387 at 1:44 a.m. Missouri DMV Google search.
Yes.
Next page, please. 388 at 1:44 a.m. Missouri DMV Google search.
Yes.
2/14/2023, 1:44 a.m. Motor vehicle titling and registration, 388 and 389.
Yes.
391, 392 at 1:45 a.m. Can you find a vehicle owner by license plate, driving and vibing?
Yes.
393, 1:47 a.m. Look up car owner by license plate.
Yes.
394 on the 14th of February 2023 at 1:47 a.m. Look up car owner by license plate, Google search.
Yes.
396, 1:47 a.m. Look up car owner by license plate, Google search.
Yes.
396, 397, 1:48 a.m. on the 14th of February 2023. How do I search for automobile license plate identification in Illinois legal beagle?
Yes.
398, 399 at 1:48 a.m. How to find the owner of a license plate on YouTube?
Correct.
400 and 401, 1:48 a.m. Find car owner by license plate number using OSINT YouTube.
Correct.
Next slide, please. Well, I apologize. Go back one slide for me. Then stops at 1:51 a.m., starts at 9:52 a.m., 404 Facebook.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the next slide, please. February 15th, 8:38 a.m., 5:50, free VIN check report and VIN check report summary.
Correct.
5:52, 3:39 a.m. on the 15th, car owner by VIN, Google search.
Yes.
Same thing at 5:53.
Yes.
5:54 at 8:39 a.m., car owner by VIN.
Yes.
5:57, 5:58, how do you find the owner of a vehicle? Quora.
Correct.
5:59, 5:60, 8:39 a.m., February 15, 2023, motor vehicle record.
Yes.
Detective Coward, did you also ask that a extraction be done on the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And that extraction was done by the Illinois State Police?
Yes, sir.
It's on that same hard drive that I previously showed you?
It is.
And it is on that hard drive exhibit, I believe,
111. Yes, sir.
Did you also look at that exhibit, that extraction report?
I did.
And did you review all of that extraction report?
I did.
It's fair to say thousands of pages.
Yes, it is.
When you downloaded it, how long did it take for it to download or open up on your computer?
Long time. Over an hour, I believe.
Was there information on that cell phone that was relevant to your investigation?
Yes, there was.
Specifically, were there Facebook records that were found on that cell phone?
Yes, there was.
Okay. And 155 are not from the, I'll give them to them, but
Okay.
those aren't on the.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm going to hand you, at this point, what's been marked as people's 147 through 153.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell me, on the first page, before we publish any of these,
Yes, sir.
was there, or were there records related to a Facebook page on that phone?
Yes, there is.
And what was the name of that Facebook page?
John Smith.
Now, when you look through those records, were you able, when you looked at John Smith, was there a photograph attached to John Smith?
No, there was not.
When you looked through those records, was there information in those records that led you to believe that you could determine who the person was who had this John Smith Facebook page?
Yes, I was.
Were there messages from John Smith to other individuals on that phone?
Yes, sir.
And were there messages from John Smith on Facebook to other individuals where he described the car that he drove?
Yes, there was.
And were there messages to other people on that phone from John Smith, describing what he looks like.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this point, we would ask that those records be admitted into evidence based on the foundation that they were on the defendant's phone and what the witness has described. I can go into more, but it's also on the records itself.
Ms. Schnock, you wish to be heard?
I do.
All right, you may be heard.
Your Honor, I would not object to any of the messages from the John Smith account. I would object to the entry of any replies or any other conversations from any other individual on those messages and in those conversations.
Based on hearsay?
Yes,
Okay. You're not objecting to the foundation, correct?
correct.
All right. So those will be admitted if there are replies, though, to those messages, then we will take that up, Mr. Jones. Are you going to introduce some?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So what's the basis for the introduction?
Judge, I think it's probably more appropriate we talk about that outside the presence of the jury.
Okay. We will go ahead and go outside the presence of the jury, and we will need the defendant and counsel.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
We are back on the record on 23 CF 170 People versus Timothy Bliefnick. Mr. Bliefnick is present along with his attorney, Ms. Casey Schnock. People are present by Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones and Laura Keck, and the witness has returned to the witness stand, and would you please bring in the jury?
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. The Assessed Circuit Court is now reconvened with Honorable Robert K. Judge presiding. Please be seated.
The objection has been overruled, and Mr. Jones, you may proceed.
And we could have it. Straight up. We can go to the first slide from the defendant's phone. Detective Couch, can you tell me what we're looking at here?
These are one of the usernames, or user names attached to the device.
And that's part of that Cellbrite report that we heard about from the Illinois State Police, that bit-for-bit complete download of the defendant's phone.
Yes, sir.
And if you look, you see a user account and username. What's that username?
John Smith.
And the source of that John Smith username is Facebook Messenger. Is that right?
That is right.
If you go forward one slide, please. Under Facebook Messenger, where there's some messages between John Smith and individuals, and for the record, what we have up right now is People's Exhibit 148.
Yes, there were.
And can you see the name Bob Singleton
Yes.
at the top, and then John Smith, and in parentheses it says owner?
Yes.
Is that owner of the phone, owner of the Facebook Messenger account?
Owner of that user account. Yes, sir.
And the message that is more difficult than I intended to read in green is what? Can you read that?
Bob, any interest in pushing back to roughly 11 a.m. in Hannibal tomorrow?
And if we could go forward one slide, again, so we're clear, this is a message from the owner of the phone, John Smith, to the other individual on Facebook Messenger.
Yes, correct.
Next message. And these are two messages from John Smith to that other person, correct?
Correct.
What did John Smith say in the first message?
The first one, he wrote 10:45 or 11 is fine. I'll be in an orange Honda CR-V when you arrive.
What kind of vehicle did the defendant drive in February of 2023?
Orange CR-V.
And there was another message from John Smith to that person?
Yes, sir.
And what was that message?
Hey, Bob, I got down here a little early. I'll be inside having coffee. I'm in a green zip-up hooded jacket. I have long brown hair.
Again, in February and March of 2023, what kind of hair did the defendant have?
Long brown hair.
Next slide, please. There was another Facebook message between John Smith and an individual by the name of Amy Trevor Webster. Is that right?
That is correct.
And the beginning of that string starts with a Facebook marketplace post. Is that fair to say?
That is fair.
And it's a Facebook marketplace post for a 26-inch Boys Men Mongoose mountain bike.
Correct.
Next page. And again, in green are the messages from the John Smith Facebook account, and
Correct.
in blue are messages from the other party.
Yes.
The message from John Smith to the other party in regard to that mountain bike is this still available? If so, I'd like to come check it out and likely purchase it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the date of that was October 12, 2022, correct?
Correct.
And the response was yes?
Correct.
Next slide, please. The response from Amy Trevor Webster to the John Smith was what time? He then says between 1 and 2.
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not sure if I will be, but if I'm not, I will set it out front and you can just put money in the mailbox.
Correct.
John Smith on October 13, 2022 says, money is in the mailbox. Thank you.
Correct.
In searching the defendant's residence, did you find a bicycle in the garage?
We did.
And for the record, I'm holding up People's Exhibit 81. Do you see that?
Yes.
And there's a bicycle in the middle of that garage, correct?
Correct.
And again, for the record, I'm holding up People's Exhibit 82 that's been introduced in evidence. Is that the bike that you found?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Is that a 26-inch mongoose mountain bike?
Yes, it is, sir.
I want to be fair. You don't know that it's the same mongoose mountain bike that's being referred to in this message, do you?
I do not.
You have no proof of that.
No.
Next slide, please. In Exhibit 153, on the John Smith Messenger account, we see some system messages to John Smith's phone about a Facebook marketplace post. Is that right?
That is correct.
And is that about a 26-inch Schwinn mountain bike?
Yes, sir.
And if you could go back one, please, and pull out that call out. At the top of that, does it have some information about the account, the source title, all those things?
Correct.
And it also has one of the participants being with John Smith, a Mike Bliefnick.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Can you go to the first call out, please? And a message was sent to the defendant's phone from Facebook saying that the listed title was changed to Sold Isn't Her Schwinn Mountain Bike.
Yes.
And then the next one. This is also on October 11, 2022. Mike reduced the price to $75 for Sold Men's Bike Isn't Her Schwinn Mountain Bike.
Yes.
Based on that information, did you go to Mike Blazing's Facebook page?
I did.
And did you observe a blue mountain bike on that Facebook page?
Yes.
That's fine. People's Exhibit 145 is what on the screen, People's Exhibit 145, a photograph from that Facebook page of Mike Blazing.
Yes.
Can't remember if that's been introduced or not. Has it been?
I don't, has it
Yes.
been? Okay. Mr. Jones, but with that, People's Exhibit 147 through 153 will be admitted over the objection of counsel that was previously made.
I apologize, Your Honor, I didn't ask for that. I should have, and I did not ask that they be admitted, so.
All right. You may proceed.
In the course of your investigation, did you also find a blue Schwinn mountain bike about a half a block from the defendant's home?
Yes, sir.
Don't think 154 been admitted. Don't think so. No, okay.
And I'm going to approach you and hand you what's been marked People's Exhibit 154. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that the 26-inch blue Schwinn mountain bike that was recovered approximately half a block from the defendant's home
It was.
on February 27th, 2023?
Correct.
Your Honor, I ask that that photograph be introduced into evidence and published to the jury.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Now, did you have a chance to compare that bike in People's 154 to the prior picture from Mike Blazing's Facebook page of the bike that he had sold?
Yes, I did.
And in looking at the bike in this picture, were there some characteristics of it that you noted?
Yes, I did.
Specifically with regard to the front fork of the bicycle. Did you notice something?
I did.
What?
There was some type of scratch mark on the top section of the front forks.
And what about the kickstand of this bike in 154?
The end of the kickstand had been broken off.
And what about the top of the frame, the top of the frame that sits underneath the seat?
Slightly left to the S and Sidewinder, there's some type of mark.
And what about the wheels themselves? Are there something that's missing from the wheels?
There's no reflector on the wheels.
On either wheel?
No, sir.
And there's no front reflector?
Go ahead, Mr.
There's no front reflector or rear reflector on that bike as well? Is that
No,
right?
there's not.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 155. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Is that basically a comparison of the two prior pictures with the areas that we just talked about, sir?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we'd ask that 155 be published to the jury.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No, Your Honor.
Will be admitted and may be published.
So again, on both the top part of this picture, the posting picture, and the bottom part of the picture, which is the bicycle that was found less than half a block from the defendant's home on February 27, 2023, you see the same marks on the front fork.
Yes, sir.
And on both of these, the kickstand is damaged as you described.
Yes.
And in both of these, there's a mark or a defect on the frame.
Yes.
Both of these bikes don't have
Reflectors?
reflectors on either the front or rear wheel.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And both of these bikes do not have reflectors on the front or back of the bike. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you also compare this blue bike with the mongoose bike that was found in the defendant's garage on March 1st, 2023, when the search warrant was executed.
Yes, I did.
And when we talk about comparing them, did you compare them specifically for the height of the two seats?
Yes.
Let me ask it to you this way. Did you measure how high the height was on the mongoose bike that was in his garage?
Yes, I did.
And did you measure the height of the seat on the blue Schwinn bike that was found less than a half block from the defendant's home?
Yes.
When were photographs taken of these measurements?
Yes, they were.
Going to hand you what's been marked People's Exhibits 171 through 175.
Yes, sir.
Are those the photographs that we talked about, the photographs of that comparison process of measuring the seat height?
Yes, it is.
And do those photographs accurately show what you observed, what you saw when that was done?
Yes.
We'd ask that People's 171 through 175 be admitted to evidence, and would ask leave to publish.
Any objection, Ms. Schnock?
No.
They will be admitted and you may publish.
We can go to the first slide, please. Detective Cowan, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
That's a picture of the bike that we recovered from the defendant's garage and a measurement.
We see a tape measure that's being held up to the seat. Is that right?
It is correct.
We can go to 172. Is that a close-up of that?
Yes.
If you look on the right side of the tape measure, it appeared to be about 97.5 centimeters.
Yes.
173. Again, is that the blue bike that was recovered?
That is, yes, it is.
And you see a tape measure on that as well?
Yes, sir.
We can go to 174. And if we look at the right side on that, it appears to be exactly 98 centimeters.
Correct.
And People's 175. Is that a close-up of both those showing that the two seats were within half a centimeter of each other?
Yes, it is.
We've been talking about the defendant's cell phone. I now want to talk about the defendant's cell phone and the websites that cell phone was used to visit, okay?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to hand you what has been marked People's Exhibit 162-4. Let me give you a chance to look through those and tell me when you are done.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me in a general sense what People's 162-4 is?
These are websites that were visited at some point on the defendant's cell phone.
Now, I want to be clear, there are, with the one exception, there are no dates attached to those websites. You cannot say when that cell phone was used to go to those websites.
Correct.
You don't know when it was.
No.
You do know, however, that the phone was factory reset on what date?
October 15th, 2021.
So, those callouts that we have, those pages that we have, that's not a complete list of every website that the defendant went on. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
Let me rephrase, I apologize. That the defendant's cell phone was used to go to.
Correct.
To be fair, you don't know if the defendant went to those pages himself or somebody else used his phone.
Correct.
His phone was password protected, however.
It was.
The pages that we have provided are they what you believe is relevant based on your training experience and your knowledge of the investigation?
Yes, sir.
At this point, Your Honor, and based on the court's previous ruling, we would ask that that evidence be admitted into evidence and leave to publish to the jury.
Ms. Stock?
Your Honor, I have an objection to the admission of this exhibit, and I would like to make a record of that objection. if
You
it
may
pleases
be
the
heard.
court. Thank you, Mr. Jones and the court. As has been previously stated, with the exception of one of these searches, there are no time or date stamps with respect to the searches that are being made. And if we do not know when these searches are made, Your Honor, we do not know if these searches are relevant, and if they are, what probative value that they have. Obviously, if these searches were made 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that has a different effect than if these searches were made in January or February of 2023. It also has a different effect if these searches were made in March of 2023. So in light of the fact that the people, with the exception of one of these searches, cannot tell us with any degree of certainty who made these searches or when they were made, the relevance of these searches cannot be determined. It only opens the door for speculation, and therefore would be objecting to the admission of any searches obtained from the defendant's cell phone or laptop that do not have a time and date stamp.
Mr. Jones, you wish to be heard.
Judge, thank you. Counsel's argument goes to the weight the jury should give it, not to its admissibility. I would point out the witnesses testified that the defendant's cell phone was password protected and that it was factory reset on October 15, 2021.
Ms. Schnock, you wish to be heard further.
No, Your Honor.
The court is going to overrule the objection. It's true that Ms. Schnock argues that depending on when the searches was made, have a lot to do with the weight of that evidence or the relevance of that evidence. However, it is not the court's job to determine the weight of the evidence. The court's job is to determine whether or not it may be admissible, which means whether or not the people have laid a foundation for that evidence. The people have laid a proper foundation for that evidence. It came from the defendant's cell phone. It was password protected. And so anything else goes to the weight, what weight the jury would give to that evidence, or whether the jury doesn't give any weight to that evidence. But it is admissible. It's the jury's job to determine the weight to be given to any piece of evidence. It's not the court's. And for that reason, the court is going to overrule the objection, and the people's exhibits 162-4 will be admitted, and they may be published.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the first screen here, we have exhibit 162-4, and there is a website that was visited with a specific date of, if you could go to the next call out, please, of 10/4/22, October 4th of 2022. Is that right?
That is correct.
And that website is www.bevitchett.us improvise-silencer-silencer-2.html. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Detective, I also see numbers on here, 465, 466, 467. Those numbers should not be considered in any way to be indicative of when the search occurred.
That's correct.
So if just because the 466 was on October 4th, 2022, no one should assume that 467 or 500 or 600 were after it.
That's correct.
And number 1 or number 2 or number 3 should not be considered before it. This is just a number of websites visited.
Yes.
We go to the next slide. Is this also one of the searches or websites that the defendant visited?
Yes.
I apologize, I misspoke. That the defendant's phone visited.
Yes.
And it is www.google.com. Search, can you identify if a shotgun shell was shot out of a specific gun?
Yes.
Next slide, please. Website that the defendant's phone visited, homelyville.com, how to open window from outside.
Yes.
Google search, can I force open my door with a crowbar if I locked myself out?
Yes.
Another Google search, can I force open my door with a crowbar if I locked myself out?
Yes.
Next slide, please. Another Google search, can I force open my door with a crowbar if I locked myself out?
Yes.
Google search, how to open my door with a crowbar?
Yes.
Homeemergency.wonderhowto.com, how to open almost any door with easy lockpicking trick.
Yes.
www.artoflockpicking.com, how to unlock a privacy lock.
Yes.
Next slide. The defendant's phone was used to visit a website, DIY Quickly, how to use a crowbar to open a door.
Yes.
And the defendant's phone was used to visit a support.whoop.com, Whoop data activities, auto detection, automatic and manual activity detection.
Correct.
His phone visited a website at ohiocrime.law.com, gunshot residue evidence, not always a smoking gun.
Correct.
His phone was used on a Google search, can you just wash off gunpowder residue?
Correct.
And his phone visited a Quora website, can gunshot residue be washed off or wiped off?
Correct.
Next slide, please. His phone was used to visit guncleaninghq.com. Can gunshot residue be washed off?
Correct.
And a Google search on his phone, can you just wash off gunpowder residue?
Correct.
Next slide, please. And his phone was used to visit a Quora website. Are shotgun rounds traceable? If a shotgun can be matched, how is it done? If they can't be matched, why aren't they the choice guns of criminals?
Correct.
And his phone was used to visit legalbeagle.com. Outgun registered, correct?
Correct.
In looking at the thousands of pages on the defendant's cell phone and the records that you received from Cellbreak, were you also able to look at searches that were conducted on the defendant's phone, certain things that were searched?
Yes,
And did you make a record of those as well?
I did.
Going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 162-3. Now, that's not a complete set of every search on the defendant's cell phone, fair to say?
That's fair to say. Yes, sir.
That's hundreds of pages.
Yes, it is.
These are selected ones that you felt in your training and experience and the knowledge you had of the case that would be relevant to what we're doing here today.
Yes, sir.
And once again, on those searches that were done with the defendant's cell phone, there is no date and time. You can't tell us what date or what time those searches were made.
Correct.
And you cannot tell us if the defendant made those searches himself or someone else used the cell phone.
Correct.
But the cell phone was password protected,
Yes.
and it was factory reset on in October of 2021.
Yes.
There are numbers along the left side of those searches, much like what we just saw in the previous exhibit.
Yes.
And again, no one should assume that because one number is higher than another, that indicates any type of chronological order or any chronological effect. It is simply the number that was assigned to the search by the computer.
That is correct.
Ms. Stock, you wish to renew your objection?
I do.
Okay. The objection will be overruled, and these searches will be admitted over objection.
I'd ask that People's 162-3, I believe,
Yes.
be introduced and published.
They are admitted, you may publish them.
The defendant's cell phone was used to search how to open my door with a crowbar.
Correct.
Can I force open my door with a crowbar if I lock myself out?
Correct.
Can I force open my door with a crowbar if I locked myself out?
Yes.
Those are two separate searches, correct?
Yes.
Next slide. Phone was used to search how many cops in Quincy, Illinois?
Yes.
Next slide. Phone was used to search how to make a homemade pistol silencer.
That is correct.
Phone was used to search average Quincy Police Department response time.
That's correct.
Phone was used to search again, average Quincy Police Department response time.
That's correct.
Again, a separate search for that.
Yes.
How can I check if a gun is registered to me?
That's correct.
Can you just wash off gunpowder residue?
That's correct.
Defendant's phone was used to search, does my whoop catch up when I'm not wearing it?
That's correct.
Separate search, does my whoop catch up when I'm not wearing it?
That's correct.
And another search, does my whoop record while I'm not wearing it?
That's correct.
Defendant's phone was used to search, does my whoop record the exact times I wear it?
That's correct.
Defendant's phone was used to search, can you find out what guns are registered to your name?
Yes, sir.
And it was used to search how to clean gunpowder off your hands.
Yes.
And it was used to search, can you identify if a shotgun shell was shot out of a specific gun?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, if I could have just one moment.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Detective Cowick. That's all the questions I have.
Cross, Ms. Schnock.
Yes, Judge, thank you. Detective, I want to start by talking about these searches and the devices generally, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So as far as the searches on the laptop are concerned,
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing that shows is that those searches were made from that particular device, correct?
Correct.
It does not mean that Tim was the one that did those searches, correct?
Correct.
And that information does not show you or tell you who had possession of that laptop the time those searches were made, correct?
Correct.
And it does not give you the location of that device at the time the search was made, correct?
I'd have to look. It's possible that IP address is attached to those searches.
Okay.
So it's possible that it would show where it's located.
Okay, in this case, were you able to find a location of the device at the time the searches were made?
I do not know.
Okay. If you knew, would you tell us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Of course.
Thank you. And with respect, and I apologize if I already asked you this, it doesn't tell you who made the search. It's just the search was made from that device.
Correct.
Okay. Now, with respect to the cell phone, the searches on the cell phone do not tell you that Tim did those searches, correct?
Correct.
And they do not tell you who had possession of that device the time those searches were made, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, you do not have any information of the location of the phone the time those searches were made, correct?
Correct.
And you don't know who initiated those searches, correct?
That's correct.
Simply that those searches were done on that device, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, as far as those searches are concerned, with the exception of one visit to one website, there are no times and dates associated with any of these searches, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you previously testified with respect to the websites that were visited. Let's talk about those. Were there any parameters that were used to search for these results?
No, ma'am.
All right, so is this comprehensive? It's not the total amount of searches, correct? Right here.
I don't know. I guess I don't know your
So,
question.
okay, so there are numbers on the left-hand side of this exhibit, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you previously testified that the searches before a specific search and after a specific search aren't necessarily relevant to what you have previously testified to, correct?
I'm sorry. I'm still not understanding the question. I apologize.
May I
Trying-
approach, Your Honor?
Yep.
You may.
Thank you.
Trying to make sure I answer it correctly.
So I'm referencing People's Exhibit 162-4.
Okay.
Okay, and so we have 3 different searches on this page, correct?
Yes, we do.
All right, and there was one search of relevance as to 10-4-22, correct?
That is correct.
And that's the search right here in the middle, correct?
That is correct.
And the search before that, you do not have, do you have a time or date for that search?
Negative.
And the search after that, do you have a time or date for that search?
No, sir. No, ma'am. Sorry.
Right, so as far as People's 162-4 is concerned, the first and third search have nothing to do with the second search, correct?
Judge, I apologize for objecting here, and it's not a strong objection, but 162-4 is websites visited, not searches.
Sorry,
I just wanted to be.
websites.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so these searches have nothing to do with one another, correct?
Correct. Yes,
And
ma'am.
you cannot tell, based on this exhibit, what order they were searched in.
That is correct. That is correct.
And so you can't tell us if they have anything to do with one another or not.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Now, with respect to the cell phone search history. Again, were any parameters put into any specific program to generate a report or a search?
No, ma'am.
All right. And so there wasn't any, you didn't put in anything like search for specific terms or
Oh.
specific words?
There were, yes.
Okay,
Word search, yes.
So there was a word search?
Yes.
Okay. And did you determine what words were used to put into that search?
Well, there were several different, I wouldn't remember, but I mean, we would use several words that we would think that were relevant to the case.
Okay,
try to
and so
find-
that was a judgment call made by you and other detectives in
Yes,
this
ma'am.
matter, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And these cell phone records, none of them have a time or date stamp, correct? With Respect,
In respect to this, what you're
the cell
mentioning,
phone search history.
in respect to these exhibits, no, they do
Okay.
not.
All right. So you cannot tell us when any of these searches were made, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot tell us if they were, so you definitely can't tell us if these searches were made before or after Becky was murdered, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot tell us in what order these searches were made, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot tell us, and you can't tell us if they have any relevance to one another, correct?
Correct.
And you cannot give us any context to these searches, correct?
What do you mean by that, ma'am?
Well, you don't know why these searches were made,
Correct.
and you don't know who did these searches, correct?
Correct.
Simply that these were searches that were pulled off of a device that you found during the course of your investigation, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't know if there are any other individuals that have access to this cell phone and its passcode, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that if there were other individuals that had access and had the passcode, they could be just as likely to make these searches as anybody else.
Yes.
And the same with the laptop. If somebody had access to the laptop, they could make a search just as easily as anybody else that had access to that laptop, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
As far as the bicycle is concerned, you testified to some system messages in People's Exhibit 153. Do you have that in front of you, Detective?
If you give me just a second, ma'am. I do have a lot of exhibits here.
I can appreciate that.
Which one are you referring to, ma'am?
153.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, these are simply system messages from the Facebook Marketplace, correct?
That's what they say, yes, ma'am.
That's what they say they are. So this does not mean to show that the John Smith profile purchased this specific bike, correct?
Correct.
It was just a message to the John Smith profile that that bike had been sold, correct?
That's correct.
But these messages do not show that the John Smith profile purchased that Schwinn mountain bike, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And as far as these messages are concerned, you don't have any information to suggest that the bike was actually picked up and paid for as they say they have been.
Yes, we do. Wait, what was your question? If it was purchased?
Yes,
It was.
but you don't know by who.
Correct.
Okay. And as far as the bike is concerned, the blue bike that was seized around 18th Street behind that garage, in at least one of the pictures that was shown in the People's Exhibit, that blue bike had the bike handlebars off of it, correct? And I would.
Yes, I'm looking at 154?
Yes.
154, yes, ma'am.
And the bike was found with handlebars on it, correct?
That is correct.
And those bike handlebars were removed prior to that picture being taken, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And were those handlebars removed for the purpose of having them sent to a crime lab for DNA and fingerprint testing?
Yes, ma'am.
And were they sent off for any other testing other than DNA and fingerprint?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you know if it was ever tested for gunshot residue?
I do not know.
Okay. And to be fair, you don't know that the bike that you found on 18th Street is the same bike that was referenced in any of these Facebook Messenger messages.
I believe it is the same bike.
You believe it is, but you don't know that it is, correct?
I think the comparison shows that it is, yes.
Do you know? It
Yes.
has similarities.
Yes, similarities.
Okay, so did you see that bike on Marketplace before before you found it on 18th Street?
Did I see
When was
this-
the first time you saw that bike?
the bike in reference when we located it on 18th Street?
All right, and you don't know where
Yes.
that bike came from, correct? You don't know how it got there,
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
and you don't know where, I'll strike that. Finally, with Becky's phone, you reported the last activity on her phone would have been at 12:53 a.m. on February 23rd, correct?
Besides the phone call, yes.
Okay. And do you know what the nature of that activity was?
Facebook. I don't know exactly what the nature was, but it was Facebook.
All right, and you did not find any conversations between Becky and anybody else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you also referenced that that you saw some text messages between Becky and Ted Johnson, the evening of the 22nd, correct?
Yes.
And do you know what time those messages were sent?
I'd have to I would have to look at those. I don't remember
Were
exactly
they
time.
before midnight?
Again, I would have to look, ma'am.
Did you review any text messages between Becky and anybody else after she texted Ted Johnson?
I'm sure I did, but I don't remember exactly what those were.
Do you know if she had any conversations with anybody after Ted Johnson on the evening of the
I
22nd?
do not remember.
No other questions, Judge?
Redirect?
Couple questions. The defendant's cell phone that
Yes.
we've talked about, that was seized from him on what date
The first, March 1st.
of 2023?
Yes, sir.
And when that phone was seized, was it put in airplane mode so it would not be, nothing could be changed on it at that point?
That is correct.
And again, it was factory reset on October 15, 2021.
That is correct.
That's all the questions I have.
All right, you may step down. If you could hand those exhibits to the bailiff.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Jones, that's all we have for today, correct?
Yes, Judge, our other lab individuals were required to testify in other locations today, so we could not get them until Tuesday.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are going to be released for the weekend. Monday's a holiday, so enjoy your long weekend. I will need you back in the jury room on Tuesday. If you could be there by like 10 till 9, so you're all gathered and ready so we can start at 9 o'clock. And then I would hear, a lot of people are gonna want to talk to you about this case, but please refrain from doing that. And I would admonish you again, you should not do any independent investigation or research on any subject or person relating to the case. What you may have seen or heard outside the courtroom is not evidence. This includes any press, radio, or television programs, and it also includes any information available on the internet. Such programs, reports, and information are not evidence, and your verdict must not be influenced in any way by such materials. For example, you must not use the internet, including Google, Wikipedia, or any other source that you might otherwise use to search for any information about the case or the law which applies to the case or people involved in the case, including the defendant, witnesses, lawyers, and judge. During the course of the trial, while you were on your own, do not communicate with, provide information personally, in writing or electronically to anyone about this case, not even your own families or friends, court personnel, and also not even among yourselves until instructed otherwise. You must not provide any information about the case to anyone by any means at all, and this includes posting information about the case or your thoughts about it on any device or internet site, including blogs, chat rooms, or any social networking websites such as Twitter, Facebook, or any other means. You cannot use any electronic devices or services to communicate about this case, including cell phones, smartphones, laptops, the internet, and any other tools of technology. The use of such devices or services in connection with your duties is prohibited. And having said that, have a good long weekend, and I thank you for your attention to this case and for you all being prompt so far, and we will see you next week. You are excused.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
All right, council, Tuesday, 8:30.
We'll be here.
All right. So will I, God willing.
Yeah.
We will
Don't jinx us, Judge.
today.